Michele Granberg here. Welcome to Positive Energy, enlightening television for the evolving soul. On this show, we're talking about past life regression. Do you believe in past lives? The notion that our soul never really dies and is reborn again and again, lifetime after lifetime, is neither new or novel. It is a timeless, enduring belief that crosses many cultures, faiths, and religions. So, is it possible for you to remember your past lives? We're joined by Dr. Linda Backman, psychologist and regression therapist. She's going to lead us through this fascinating discussion. Stay with us. Positive Energy starts right now. Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm good, Michelle. It's nice to be with you.
Greetings from New Jersey.
Thank you. Thank you. Greetings from Colorado.
Well, it's great to see you. Thank you for being on Positive Energy. And
my pleasure.
I'd like to start. Tell us what a past life regression therapist does, or regression therapist does, and tell us a little bit about your practice.
Okay. Well, I am a psychologist by training, and I guide regression therapy, which basically is guiding a client into relaxation and guiding a client to use their own intuition. I'm not the channel or the medium. I don't give them the information. I guide the client to uncover important details of a past life and how they planned their current life, purposes of their current life, and more than that. But that's kind of the quick synopsis.
Wonderful. So I also do past life regression therapy, and are you like me that you're seeing more and more people these days? Are you finding that in your practice? Or the same amount? Or just varies?
It's so hard to answer, because, and the reason it's hard to answer is, I do this type of work pretty much week in and week out. And I find, I don't know that I'd say there's more people being interested just because I'm blessed. I usually stay pretty busy. But I think more and more people are wanting to understand a deeper perspective of who they are.
That's my feeling as well. I think it reflects a larger shift in a really positive direction.
Absolutely.
So let's dive deeper into this and talk a little bit about the soul, my favorite topic. So talk a little bit as it relates to past life regression therapy, the nature of the soul, and how the soul advances.
Okay, good. Well, I might just add, as I talk about the soul, that I guide more than past life regression. I guide something called between lives regression, which basically uncovers past life, and then the client understands more about who they are as a soul and how they plan their current life. So my understanding from client after client after client, and I don't pluck this information out of the air, it comes from repetitive clients giving me, validation from one client to the next. The soul is our divine self. The soul is that core aspect of who we are, what causes us to be alive. We are, we might say, a divine fragment of energy that comes into body to cause us to be alive. But we come into body on earth to evolve. This is school, this is the sometimes complicated laboratory. So we are divine at that core of who we are as a soul.
Nice. I like what you said, a divine spark of light, of intelligence, of the greater whole.
Yes.
Expressing itself in a human form. And the main purpose, and I like to emphasize for people, it's not about suffering, it's not about struggling, it is not about climbing uphill, it really is about growth and expansion and learning through this experience.
That is so true. And, we think that life is supposed to be easy, or maybe I should say some people think that, well, why is life so hard? Well, it's kind of like, why is school, when you go to literal school that we're required to go to, sometimes it's hard, right. But that's how we learn.
At least at first, right?
That's right. That's right.
So talking more about the soul and this notion of pre-birth planning, Do you believe, and have you come across with your clients directly, that the soul chooses some of its circumstances in advance of birth, again, for the purpose of growth? And sort of how much of that? What has been your experience?
Well, absolutely, yes. We choose the circumstances. So we choose our type of body, tall, short, leaning in the not so light direction, leaning in the thin direction, color of skin, ethnicity, part of the world where we're going to be born. We also make contracts with other souls. You're going to be my mother. You're going to be my father. And it's an agreement. It isn't like, some forced role. But we script these details for the purpose of progression, or what we might call moving through our soul's evolution, which leads us through such things as karma and as well as dharma.
So I know when people hear that, if it's the first time they're hearing that, it's radical to hear, but for others, it makes them cringe a little bit. What do you mean? I hear so often, what do you mean I chose my parents? Right? So how do you frame that for clients, as you just did, even further in a positive way? Hey, you have choice, that means, right? None of this is by coincidence or accident.
That is totally true. And I can always easily use myself as an example, which probably will resonate with a lot of the listeners. And that is that I used to think, well, why is my mother's personality kind of difficult? People would agree, yes, your mother doesn't have an easy personality. And some years ago, Michele, when I realized, oh, I hired this soul, or basically this soul agreed to read from a script for my own soul's progress, and perhaps for hers as well, just to use mom as an example. But that I gave my mother a script of sorts and said, please relate to me this way, because this is what, if I decide to dig in and really want to grow, it's going to help me evolve.
I love that. So I think it's all at once comforting and makes you very curious when we hear this, and it makes us want to ask ourselves the powerful questions like, why would I? In other words, what's the positive? How have I grown? How am I better for having had this relationship despite its difficulties that way?
Exactly. And, I might add as well, and I have my own sort of lingo of things I say, it is also possible that souls go off script. So again, for the listeners, there might be some listeners going, well, my father was, abusive, or my mother, this was really hugely difficult. Souls also can, we might say, go off script.
Got it, because we have free will.
That's right. Totally
Each and
right.
every moment we're making choices with our free will. And
Correct.
then there's the positive. There's also the positive we can emphasize as well. The people we meet who we are so in love with, the people we meet, that was also pre-planned, the people who we are so bonded with, right, that we really resonate with. You come across that as well.
Yes, I come across that often, and I also say to people, think about those souls that you don't resonate with. Think about those souls that are a challenge. That doesn't mean you haven't known them before. That means they agreed to push your buttons.
It doesn't mean it isn't a soul-based relationship. If we don't judge it on the surface and look a little bit deeper, right? There's still an agreement. They agreed for you to forget them in some ways, right? That's how much they love you. They're going to let you hate them for a little while, sort of.
That's I always remember a client who called me. We had worked on her relationship with her mother, which was challenging. And she called me on the day that her mother passed, that her mother died or transitioned into spirit. She said, Linda, I can sense my mother's energy now. I can sense my mother's soul energy now. And she's different. The feel of this soul that was so challenging, I feel warmth and love and nurturance, and because it was a script that mom was reading from.
So at the basis of all of these relationships, it really is about love. It comes from love. It stems from love.
That's correct.
I like that. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit more specifically about, with you, what a past life regression session entails. Like, what does it look like a little bit when a client comes to your office, and what is the key to helping clients remember their past lives? Are there any clients who just cannot remember their past lives, and why?
Okay. Okay. Good, great, wonderful questions. So the client comes. I obviously begin to get to know the client. I want to know a thumbnail sketch of the client's current life, because then that will help me to help them integrate. So why were you shown this past life? What's the point? What's the message? How will it help you? So we do an interview, and then I have them lay down, and technically it's hypnosis, but the word hypnosis sometimes scares people. Hypnosis is just relaxation. It's just what we do every day of our life when we're relaxing long before we go to sleep. I guide the client to uncover, using their intuition, a scene, an initial scene of a past life. And with my support, but without me telling them the information, they're telling me the information. We move scene by scene, understanding what happened in the life, and we go all the way to the death scene. And then when I'm guiding longer regression, we move beyond the death scene and we work at the soul level of the client to understand many aspects of who they are as a soul.
Yeah, so that gives us a really good idea of it, and that's exactly how I work as well. So it's really wonderful to hear that. You sort of follow that natural arc, and you're there as the guide, staying a little more distant from it, walking them through it. And it's so fascinating how they can straddle the two worlds, sort of dueling states that are perfect together, right? They're able to remember and they're able to report at the same time.
Yes, exactly. And you asked, Michelle, in your last question, you asked, so how many people, how can most people do that? Does that work for most people? And as you well know, that's what people worry about. I often have clients saying, well, I'm glad I'm here and I'm excited to learn, but maybe it won't work. And I say to clients, totally honestly, I say somewhere between 95 and 98% of all the clients I work with do absolutely
Majority.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes I guess just expressing that, just venting that little fear helps to dispel it. And you and I help to also move them past often it's tied to misconceptions. That's
Exactly.
why they're worried and that's why they're afraid. And once you clear those up, they feel better. And as long as they're open and they have nothing to lose, and sometimes it might not happen the first time, doesn't mean it won't happen the second time or the third time. So it's not something that's a one-shot deal in that
Yes.
way.
And as you know, we live in a very, what I might call left-brained culture, or a black-white culture on this planet. We're not taught how to use our intuition. So sometimes clients are surprised at how easily they intuitively access details of soul memory and past life memory.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to get out of your head in some ways, right? So
Yes.
much is there in our inner world. So talk a little bit about the benefits. Why would someone come? What's therapeutic about it, even though we've already hinted to that, and any stories or examples that come to mind about something powerful and interesting that kind of stands out in where someone had a healing type of experience as a result of their past life recall.
Okay. Well, I'll just put the foundation out briefly of, so why do we come into body repetitively? So why do we incarnate? And the simplified explanation is we come into body to grow, as we've already said. We come into body to do one or both of what I'm about to explain. We come into body to understand karma. We come into body to clean up something that's happened before. It could be we were a negligent parent. It could be we were very self-involved. So we come into body to keep growing as a soul, and past life information shows us where our karma is so that we can shift that. Also, we discover what we might call dharma. We discover, well, what did I do in a past life that I was really good at or successful at? Because today I think I can't earn a comfortable living, or today I think I just am an inadequate relationship partner. And we learn, oh, we've done that before and we did that really, really well. So that's kind of the basic premise of what is the purpose of lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. Now, when I guide clients to do their work in what we might call the between lives or the higher self level, the soul level, then clients learn, they basically learn what their guides want them to learn. I always say to the clients, I don't determine the agenda. Your guides determine the agenda, but I will assist you to uncover answers to your questions. So clients learn all kinds of things like, how did I plan my current life? What's the purpose of my current life? Who are the souls I've known before? Who are my guides? What's blocking me? Etc., etc.
Do they ever discover the roots or origins of a fear or phobia or a physical affliction or condition in past lives often, or not so often with you?
I would say often. And it ranges, I was thinking this morning about examples that I was going to give you. And some of the examples are huge and a little bit heavy, and some of the examples are more light. So I'll give a heavy example and a light example.
Both ends of the spectrum.
Yes. So a heavy example, but a rather eye-opening example for this client. This was a woman some years ago, I think mid-40s, having a lot of female organ challenges and problems. Repetitive surgeries, pain, blah, 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 that whole thing. When we went into a past life, and I'm just going to stick in, a quick aside, but it's not very far aside, is that I can't make a client uncover any past life. The client's going to uncover what their guides want them to uncover, and not, Linda's not the guru, basically. The spiritual guides of the client and the soul of the client is the higher level of knowledge and wisdom. This woman was having female issues. And where we went was into a time during World War II and the Holocaust. And she was being mistreated in a concentration camp in that part of her body. Once we discovered what happened, some of those medical issues resolved, which might surprise people. Yeah.
So how do you explain sort of the mechanics of that? Is it just the moving of the memory, the realization of the memory, or something deeper at the cellular level happens? I guess we just have to theorize on that, but there's no way to know entirely.
That's right. I totally believe that our cells in our human body of today hold memory. They hold current life memory, but they hold past life memory. And there's an energetic process that is almost unexplainable. Now, sure, some of it is left-brained and right-brained. Some of it is cognitive. The client understands cognitively what happened and emotionally what happened. And then I think, Michele, there's an energetic process that probably no one can fully explain. Yeah.
I agree.
Another, maybe not quite so heavy, example would be in a past life, we had a child. And the child, let's say, was 2 years old. And, it's hundreds of years ago. Medical care was not that great. And we died young as the mother or as the father. And we left our child behind, and we end up carrying guilt or lack of resolution to that life, and we bring it into current life. So then we're afraid to have children, perhaps, because we have this sort of kind of minimal sense of, I think something might go wrong. And once we discover what went wrong, usually we can release that.
Yeah, it makes us realize we're not crazy in some, right? There's nothing wrong
That's exactly
with me.
Right.
There's
Yes.
a reason for this. There's a logical, actual, tangible, tieable reason for this. And sometimes just when that light bulb goes off, that aha moment, that's what shifts things, right?
Yeah,
and we
totally true.
release it.
Absolutely.
So can people, or should people, I guess, try to access past lives on their own in some way or another? And if so, do you teach them that, and what's a tip for that, I guess?
I think it's completely fine to attempt to access your own past lives. And I always say to people, you already have clues about your past lives in your current life. And, sometimes they'll say, what, no, I don't. And then I'll say, okay, so here's some questions. And I say to them, think about these possibilities. If someone was going to give you a 2-week trip, paid vacation, or paid trip, better than vacation, anywhere in the world, or to any time in history, where would you go, or where would you absolutely avoid going? And if you say, well, I just would never want to be part of the French Revolution, or I absolutely want to go to China, it's important for listeners to remember it's where we're drawn and where our aversions are.
What we're repelled by as well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, that's a really simple tool and something people can do immediately. Begin to pay attention to those movies or books or clothing or language or food or parts of the world they're either drawn to and they don't know why, or they're repelled by. Yes. And that at least gives them a little bit, right, of a possibility there. That's where you've been.
Exactly.
So I know you work also, which is related to past lives, grief and loss and the afterlife, and people spontaneously often start connecting with loved ones on the other side through these types of processes because they're intuitive and heart-based in nature. So say a little bit about what you have come across and discovered in terms of people connecting with their loved ones and visitations and grief and loss.
Well, sometimes clients are drawn, as I'm sure you know, to this type of work because they have had the loss, the passing of a loved one, and they want to know, well, what happens when we die, and where do we go, and is my loved one okay, and that sort of thing. So I will say to clients, we don't know for sure if your loved one will come forward, but it is quite common when I'm guiding regression, especially the soul level regression, that when the client crosses over at the completion of the past life that they discover, that often that loved one literally, when I say literally, obviously through intuition, comes forward. And the classic question that is always asked is are you happy? Are you okay in the soul realm, in the higher sphere? And I don't think I've ever heard anything other than yes. So that's quite common. It's actually grief and loss that led me originally, Michele, into the field of psychology. And long before I became spiritual, I was dealing with the loss of my own long ago when I was in my 20s. And I just became fascinated with what is grief about? How do we move through it? And I think, not that grief is easy, but if we accept that there's more than just this life, this body, and that there is a soul realm where our loved one exists just without a physical body, I think it assists grieving a great deal.
Yeah. If there's any certainly gift in those experiences of loss and grief, it is that it causes us to ask those questions and to explore them and to trust more what we're feeling around there. And then the hopefulness in all of that is, you're right, that there's the continuity of the soul, that we continue, that our loved ones exist and very much are fine. And so there is that, we can have that discovery while we're still in our physical bodies. And that's the interesting part.
Yes, completely.
So you've written extensively on many of these topics that we're talking about in 2 books that you've written. Do you want to say anything about, tell us the titles of those books and a bit about that?
Well, the title of my 2 books are, first one is Bringing Your Soul to Light. Second one is The Evolving Soul. The reason I wrote books and continue, I'm working on book number 3 at the moment. The reason I write books, Michele, is that some people will never have a regression. Most anybody can pick up a book. And I like to let my clients write the book. And what I mean by that is that as I explain how we evolve, as I explain that our life is purposeful, and who are the souls we've traveled with before, why do we have health issues, et cetera, I use direct client material because the client stories are, I find, sort of hold the best juice, if you will, of understanding. The verbiage is a useful means to understand what clients uncover.
And it makes it relatable for people. So it's not just, all the theory and ideas, this is how it applies. And these are real people having these experiences. So that's great. I hope people will certainly check out your books. So is there, any one message you would love for someone who's really new to this? What would be the one message or idea that you would love for them to get and to leave them with?
Well, perhaps two things, if I can combine them. One is that events in our life are purposeful. They don't just come sort of willy-nilly out of the air. At times, if a relationship becomes difficult, there's a reason for that. If a health issue occurs, often there's a reason for that. And then I would say my biggest message, it's a rather esoteric message, is that we come into body to evolve. And if we trust that we're on that journey of evolution, not only will we advance as a soul, but we will step into our life's purpose and will affect, even as a single person, we can affect the greater needs of humanity to evolve, because that, I think, is what our planet is struggling with.
So that's beautiful. Focus on our journey, right? And our purpose, what feels best for us, and that's going to ripple out into the world and really make that kind of difference. Great.
Yes, absolutely.
So give us your website and how people can reach you as we begin to wrap up.
Okay. So my website is obviously www.raven, like the bird, Raven Heart in your chest, Center, ravenheartcenter.com. People can find information there. I travel a great deal to speak and teach and guide regressions, so all information needed is found on my website.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Dr. Linda Backman, for being on Positive Energy, and thank you for the work that you are doing in the world.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been great being with you.
Great. Well, we hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's time to wrap up another enlightening show. I promise to continue to bring you guests that open your mind and uplift your spirit. Reach out to me for more information about Past Life Regression Therapy or to schedule a session. Thank you for watching. Remember to be kind to one another and join me next time on Positive Energy.